We will start the webinar. The title of the webinar is Introducing the IEEE PES Transmission and Distribution Technical Committee in Region 9. This night, our speaker is Daniel Sabin. Daniel is a fellow member in IEEE, distinguished technical expert with Schneider Electric in Andover, Massachusetts, and is vice chair for Standard and Standard Coordinator of the IEEE PES Transmission and Distribution Committee. Vice Chair of the IEEE SA Entity Collaborative Activities Governance CAJ Board. Okay, this is the biography of Dan. Thank you, Dan, for your participation, and start, please.
Okay, thank you very much, Santiago. Thank you. I'm very happy to make the presentation today. This is an introduction of the IEEE PES Transmission and Distribution Committee. I'm trying to give an overview of all the activities that we do, technical activities, panel session activities, award activities, standards development activities. I'm currently the vice chair for standards, the standards coordinator for the committee. I'm also a past chair. My role is, I've actually had all of the roles in the committee, and your last role that you have is the standards coordinator. Okay, so let me get page down. So first off, and I'm going to just turn off. Well, I'll keep, yeah, I can stop the video like this. This is an overview of where the T&D committee fits inside of PES. At the top, we have the PES governing board. We report down from the vice president of technical activities through to the PES technical council. Here is the T&D committee right here, underneath the technical council. There are many other committees and coordinating committees, but I chose to start with this slide first because this is the one that also shows the PES Latin America Satellite Technical Committee as well. And so we work together via the governing board. The governing board is established that we have a technical council and a localized technical activities committee, which are meant to coordinate our activities. Both of them report together to the governing board itself. How we are supposed to work together is done via liaisons. We can actually define liaisons from the PES T&D committee to our two satellite committees, one based in China, one based in Latin America, and we can you can actually have liaisons going the other direction. They could be the same person, they could be different people, and that's something for the committees to decide as we go forward. Okay, and so back to the this is back to the entire PES technical council. Here you see all of the technical committees. I've highlighted the transmission distribution committee in green, but you'll see there's electric machinery, energy development, power system relay and control, substations, smart building and loads. T&D committee is one of the 17 technical committees that are underneath the technical council. There's also coordinating committees that are meant to provide extra levels of coordination between the technical committees, including one focused on energy internet, one focused on the intelligent grid or smart grid, and other emerging technologies, on marine systems, and on renewable systems integration. And then there's additional committees mostly focused on administration or other procedures, including an awards committee, organization and procedures committee, standards coordination committee, and an entity proposal management committee. So if we come down to the transmission and distribution committee, we see that of the 17 committees, we have been given the scope of the treatment of all matters related to design, theoretical and experimental, performance, installation, and service operation of the parts of the electric power systems that serve to transmit electric energy between generating sources and substations, between customer points, coupled with AC and DC lines. So basically, it's the transmission systems, distribution systems, it's some of the equipment that's used in those, and I'll go into that in more detail on the very next slides. Now, what we do with this scope, well, we develop IEEE standards, recommended practices, and guides. We do this inside 7 subcommittees. And in those 7 subcommittees, we have about 70 working groups. We complete collaborative working group papers. Some people don't want to work on standards. Instead, they would like to work on a working group paper or a longer version of working group paper, which could actually turn into a technical report. So PES technical reports within the scope of transmission and distribution would also be something that we could focus on. We deliver tutorials focused on emerging technology and new standards. The tutorials are usually organized for the IEEE PES general meeting or for the IEEE PES Transmission and Distribution Conference and Exposition. We organize panel sessions comprised of technical experts at the annual IEEE PES general meeting and at the biannual IEEE PES Transmission Distribution Conference. So we ask our 7 subcommittees to provide us with the proposals for which tutorials we'll deliver at these meetings and which panel sessions we'll deliver at those meetings. We deliver that to the technical council because the technical council's job is to try to organize all of the proposals into something that makes sense for a cohesive technical program. Now, a lot of people will also submit conference papers to the IEEE PES general meeting. The committee members are involved in reviewing those papers. We also review papers that are submitted to the Transmission and Distribution Conference and Expo. And we also have people who are involved in review of papers for IEEE transactions on power delivery. So these 5 bullets, that tells you everything that we do. It's a lot more detailed than that, but that's a good summary of our activity. We have a website located right there. If you would go to our website, you'll see some high level scope explaining more about what we're focused on. So overhead, underground, AC and transmission distribution systems. Also the FACS technology, which is flexible AC transmission systems. Anything to do with any engineering with overhead conductors, structural coordination, mechanical design of transmission lines, mechanical problems with transmission line, design of towers and poles, insulators and hardware. We also have shunt and series power capacitors, engineering and the safety, maintenance and operation of lines, general transmission, general electric distribution, and harmonics and power quality. That's a high level of what we are. If you click on this link, you'll actually see there's about another 30 bullets that we try to summarize as the full scope of our committee. Leadership. Here's the current leadership. We have 5 officers. The officers include Eric Sermanis, who is the current chair for 23 and 24. Julio Romero Aguero from Quanta Technology. He's our vice chair. He'll be the chair in 25 and 26. Rob Scherer is our current secretary. Surya Santoso is our immediate past chair. Here is me. My role is vice chair for standards. As I've said, I've had all of these roles before. I was the chair, I don't know, about like 6 years ago. I forget exactly when. We also have 2 other leaders. They're not officers of the T&D committee, but they're important people for you to know, including Brian Johnson, who is our technical committee program chair. He's the person who tries to help do a lot of the reviews that we do for the IEEE PES general meeting and for the T&D committee meetings. So papers that are submitted in the scope of transmission distribution, Brian is the person who organizes their review. And then John McDaniel is our representative to the IEEE PES Entity Proposal Management Committee. The EPM Committee is where proposals that do not originate, standards development proposals that do not originate inside the T&D Committee or one of its satellite committees. The EPM Committee is that committee which tries to identify which committee it should be in. And if it's related to the T or D space, John McDaniel will identify that. And so we have we're one of the largest committees inside PES. In fact, we're one of the largest technical committees inside IEEE itself. And for this reason, we've created subcommittees. We have a number of special subcommittees which are called responsible subcommittees. If you've never seen that phrase before, you might not understand what it means, but it's a very specific term that's defined in the IEEE Standards Association to indicate that these are subcommittees that can manage standards development. So that includes our administrative committee, which we usually call ADCOM, and then all of our main technical committees: capacitor subcommittee, distribution subcommittee, the ESMOL subcommittee, and ESMOL is an acronym for Engineering and the Safety, Maintenance, and Operation of Lines. We have another committee focused on high voltage DC and flexible AC transmission systems, HVDC and FACS subcommittee. We've got a subcommittee focused on transmission and distribution overhead lines. And then power quality. And this the power quality subcommittee is for both transmission power quality, distribution power quality, and power quality even below distribution levels. We try to keep our scope within the transmission distribution space, but sometimes power qualities cross over that point of common coupling boundary. We have some other committees or subcommittees that are worth mentioning. We have an awards committee, and then we have power quality standards coordinating subcommittee, which is also known as SC22, subcommittee 22. The history on this subcommittee is that this is a former IEEE Standards Association Standards Coordinating Committee. The SCCs were committees that could coordinate standards development between societies. So if PES and the Industry Application Society wanted to work on a standard together, they could be coordinated using what was then called SCC 22. SCC 22 is now SC 22, where its main role is to help coordinate standards between the IEEE and now it's the IEC itself, the IEC Subcommittee 77A in particular. Okay, one of the committees I'll focus on is the awards committee. The awards committee is chaired by Surya Santoso this year. He's the past chair of the Transmission Distribution Committee. We tried something new this year. We're going to try to do training to T&D committee level, to T&D committee volunteers who are interested in the process for how you become a senior member and how you become a fellow member. So we did this for the first time in which we had training. We did it in June. We invited some of the fellows, IEEE fellows inside the committee to participate and explain some of the processes that are involved in the IEEE fellow application process. There was a lot of new news to share at that meeting because the IEEE fellow process has been redesigned, redefined in the past year to include some renamed categories, and there's a new category itself for IEEE standards development leadership. The awards committee is also the committee which can provide one or more transmission distribution distinguished individual service awards. We're not limited to this award. It's as many individuals as we think should be given that award. But then we do have a competitive award. We have 3 competitive awards for IEEE PES Transmission and Distribution Committee. We have one for prize paper. We have one for the Working Group Recognition Award for Outstanding Standard or Guide, and then Working Group Recognition Award for Outstanding Technical Report. And so basically each of the subcommittees can submit what they think is the best paper from their subcommittee members, or they can highlight a new standard or guide that was developed, or they could highlight a new technical report that was published by their subcommittee. They can submit that to the award committee. The award committee will create a ballot in which all the subcommittees can vote and choose which of the papers or reports or guides are our transmission distribution award winners for the year. And what's important to note is that any of the award levels at the T&D level, the Transmission Distribution Committee level, we automatically will submit the winners to the IEEE PES Technical Council. And we do that for consideration of the IEEE PES level version of these awards. And so I know I've got some recent experience that I could share on how this works, because the T&D committee was actually our nominee for the guide IEEE standard 2030.11, which was completed in 21. Which is a new standard for distributed energy resources management systems, also known as DERMS. This was a functional specification that was developed. It was developed by a working group that reported directly to the IEEE PES T&D committee, and it was the IEEE PES standard of the year. So it won the outstanding standard or guide. Another award, this is actually not given by the award committee, but I thought I would mention it right here, is that the T&D committee has actually been recognized 2 years in a row by the IEEE PES Technical Council as the Technical Council Committee of the Year award. This is based on all of our peers, all of the other committees inside PES reviewed our activities, which we submitted as part of an annual report, and a majority of them chose the T&D committee in both 22 and 23 as a committee of the year. Here's myself right here on the right. There's Julio, our vice chair, Celia Santoso, our past chair, Eric Sormanis, our current chair, and Rob Scherer, who is our current secretary. Thank you. All right, and so when do we meet? Well, we have a lot of WebEx meetings. We've been doing that a lot in the past 5 years, and in the last since 2020, we've been doing a lot of web-based meetings. But we do focus on 3 conferences as for activities that our committee contributes to. One of them is held every January. It's called the IEEE PES Joint Technical Committee meeting. It's held usually in the southern United States because it's January. We don't usually hold it in the north where there could be snow. We try to keep it where the weather's warmer. So this coming January, it'll be in New Orleans in Louisiana. At this meeting, we only have committee meetings. And so that means that the committee meets, the subcommittees will meet, their working groups will meet. We don't have panel sessions, we don't have paper sessions. So it's only meant for standards development meetings or other administrative meetings. And there's the website where you can go on that. We also will attend the IEEE PES general meeting. That's usually held in July or August. This coming year, it'll be July 21st to 25th. It'll be in Seattle. At this meeting, we have a lot more happening. You'll get those same committee meetings that met in January, but it's also where we will propose panel sessions. It's where anyone who has submitted a paper or conference paper related to transmission and distribution, which we chose to accept, that's where those are presented. And it's also where tutorials are presented. We also support the IEEE PES Transmission and Distribution Conference and Exposition. So this might be confusing. We are the IEEE PES Transmission and Distribution Committee. The Transmission and Distribution Committee does not organize the Transmission and Distribution Conference. It's a different committee. However, we do support it because we have a lot of our members who attend, or a lot of our committee members attend the conference and the expo. So we will submit usually panel sessions, paper sessions, and tutorials as well. And so at all those events, the T&D committee is responsible for scheduling committee meetings, reviewing some papers that are submitted in our domain. We're also responsible for proposing and organizing panel sessions that are in our domain area. And so for all of these meetings, there's usually deadlines that are involved. Deadlines for when you would submit a panel session proposal, deadlines for when you would submit your committee meetings. I know, for example, that the deadlines for panel sessions for the T&D conference, I think it was August 1st, so it's actually already in the past. I think if you submitted something right now, you might be able to get it submitted, but you're just past the deadline for when it happens. And then for the meeting in Seattle next July, I think the deadlines for panel sessions are later this month. Papers are submitted in November, but panel session ideas, which come from our committee, have to be submitted by the end of the month. So all of this takes meetings and organization for us to ask our committee members for the proposal ideas, and then to bring them up to basically either Rob Scherer, our secretary, or Rob is doing actually collects the ideas right now. Okay, so if you wanted to find out more about our policies, you can find them on our website. So here's a screen capture of our website. There's the policies link, and you'll see there we've got a number of policies that are listed. We have our policies and procedures for how we develop standards, last revised in 2019. The policies for how we organize ourselves into committees. How do we organize ourselves to help provide the panel sessions and the other reviews that are needed for the other technical activities that the T&D committee will do. Working groups that are developing standards will find the default policy and procedures for how they should operate themselves. And you can find higher level PES governance documents, including the PES Constitution, the bylaws, the PES Operations Manual. And you'll find the IEEE Standards Association Policy and Procedures page. So a lot of helpful links here. That's all. When people are getting started and they don't know how do you actually run a meeting, well, there's instructions here for how do you run a meeting using Robert's Rules of Order. How do you accept motions? How do you decide if your meeting has quorum? How do you decide who is the chair? How does the chair get appointed? How does the chair appoint the vice chair? How do you appoint members? All of those policies are defined in these documents, and you can see that they're regularly updated. For standards development, we actually have some IEEE PES staff that are assigned to work with us. One of them is Michael Kipnis. He is he's the overall committee lead for the T&D committee for any standards development activities that take place inside the T&D committee. He also handles anything related to our administrative committee or any standards activities under the ESML, that's the Engineering Safety Maintenance of Lines, and no overhead lines. And then we've got Christian Orlando, who's the IEEE SA staff person in charge of our power capacitors, electric distribution, HVDC and FACS, power quality, and transmission subcommittees. I tried to highlight, we have a lot of standards that we support. This is actually a summary giving you an idea of how many standards are in development or active inside IEEE. So right now, in all of IEEE, this is actually, I think, as of May of this year, in all of IEEE, there's about 1,000 active standards. And of those 1,050 active standards, 464 are inside of the Power and Energy Society. And of those, 58 are maintained inside the Transmission and Distribution Committee. And so we have 58 out of 1,000 of all of IEEE standards are maintained by our committee. That's for the active standards. And then if you look over here for the development projects, well, development projects are standards that are in the process of being completed. A standard, we'll get into this, it takes about 4 years, anywhere from 2 years to 4 years to develop a standard. So once again, about 1,000 standards are in development inside all of IEEE, and of those, 70 are inside the T&D committee. So that's why I say we are one of the largest committees inside PES, but we're also one of the largest committees in all of IEEE as well. Especially when it comes to developing standards. So over here on the left, I tried to give you as I said, we've got more than 58 active standards. Here are some of the standards that we have that are give you an idea of what's in our scope. So IEEE 18 for shunt capacitors, 824 series capacitors, IEEE 519 for harmonic limits control, IEEE 738, which is the one that tells you about current temperature of overhead conductors. Some standards in the 2030 series focused on microgrids, and 1366 distribution system reliability. Those are probably some of our better known standards, but it's a short list. I don't have room to show all 58 of the active ones. The IEEE T&D committee is one of the leaders. It is possibly the leader inside the IEEE Standards Association with respect to open source software development. IEEE Standards Association has a new program. It's managed by the IEEE SA Open Source Committee. The Open Source Committee manages the open source platform. You'll find at that URL, opensource.ieee.org/pqdiff/pqdiffnet. This is the pqdiffnet, which was the first open source project in the new IEEE SA platform that came from actually I should fix this, that came from the Power and Energy Society. So let me actually say that since you're recording this, first open source project from PES. That's a better way to say that. That's managed by IEEE Standards Association. It's basically used to read and write power quality data interchange format files, which is defined by IEEE Standard 1159.3. That standard is maintained by the Power Quality Subcommittee. So we've been trying to work with IEEE Standards Association to see what it means to be developing open source code in the context of IEEE SA standards development. I think most of the other projects actually come from the Computer Society. So we're one of the few from the power industry that has made it into this program. So we're proud of that. And then finally, I come back to this slide. I showed this at the beginning. And so it's a reminder of that the T&D committee, we work with the other technical committees and coordinating committees under the technical council, but structure that was defined by the IEEE PES governing board last year defined a new IEEE PES localized technical activities committee, which we call LTAC. LTAC is what all of the satellite committees report to. So the China Satellite Technical Committee for Transmission Distribution and the Latin America Satellite Committee, you both report directly to the LTAC committee. But you can work with us via your liaisons. So at one point, we should define who the liaisons be from the T&D committee back to this committee, and from this committee to the T&D committee. The liaisons are important because they'll want to attend both meetings. Now they would want to present activities on what's going on inside the T&D committee, inside the T&D satellite committee. And if there are any issues that the PES committee can assist the Latin American committee with, the official way to do that is via the liaisons. Okay, so there's more about how the satellite committees are actually organized. This was a OMP manual, which was approved only in May of 23. The OMP manual is the Organization and Procedures Manual, O&P, OMP manual, Organization and Procedures. And so there's a template for the committee, for each satellite committee that you could find as part of the PES operations manual. So if you were to go to here on this link on the governing documents, go to that operations manual, you'll find a template for this that you should download, you should save as your own. It's basically there's a space where you could specify the name of your committee. I don't know if there's a lot of things that you can change, but you should definitely review it because it specifies how do you create your officers? How do you remove officers? What are the duties? What does the secretary do? What is the liaison to the PES technical committee? What does it do? What is the term of how long they would be in place? If you want to create subcommittees, how do you create the subcommittees? How do you decide if you're a form and voting requirements? So all of that's available. You should get a copy of it, review it. And if there's any issues with it, well, if there's any issues with it, you find like they forgot something because this is a new document. The right place to report that is to LTAC committee. And Dulce here in the meeting with us today is a member of LTAC. So she's the right person to actually contact, since she can bring that back to the LTAC committee and explain what she thinks might actually be a missing policy or something that needs to be adjusted. And that's it. So there's more information online about our governing documents and policies, and I'll leave that as links that you could review afterwards.
Thank you, Dan. Okay, now we would like to know if any of the attendees has any doubts with Dan. He's not free to answer all the questions you have from this presentation, so be free to say. If any of you have any issues with the language, you can write it down in Spanish and I can make the translation. So don't be shy. I know you have been giving applauses and something like that.
So Joe Acosta has a...
Only comment that it was a good presentation and it's really good to know about these committees. I don't know if anyone has something to ask, want to ask. Okay. So, do you see the question then? And
okay, let's see.
The video.
My question is, how can students have an approach with this committee? Okay, so for students, I guess it depends on which committee we're talking about. In one case, it's I guess the question is, how can students participate inside the transmission and distribution main committee, which I just mentioned? The best ways to do that would be attending the PES general meeting. There's an entire program focused on students. There's a student luncheon. There are student poster sessions. There's a student competition. That's one way to do that. If it's not being, if you actually cannot attend the meeting, then probably the way that students could participate would be using, I suppose, the WebEx meetings. But to find that, you're going to have to find, it's it's almost like you have to attend at least one meeting to actually find out which of the one in-person meeting to find out which of the working groups of subcommittees that you actually want to participate in. So the best place to do that is in person, but if not, then the best way to do it is in person. Now, if we're talking about the satellite committee, that's something Dulce, maybe you could answer questions with regard to that, on what sort of activities you've been planning in the region itself.
But now it's to gather the people to understand what they do. So the best way to join, it will be to first see these sessions and then start making a small working group. It will be open. I mean, we haven't decided to close it or to be selective. Right now, we are working in a pilot satellite committee. So right now, it will be open to all the person that would like to propose to sit in your. Later on, I guess we will have to make the difference between the professional that will be writing the technical committee, the technical papers that we have as region committed to do in order to receive pilot technical committee. And then later on, I guess if we can find more students or more groups, we can see how work it. So by now, this will be the idea.
I see Amanda Fernandez has a question asking who can work in the working groups. Well, that's a great question. There are actually no requirements. If you're talking about a standards development working group, it's very clear from IEEE SA Standards Association policy says that anyone could work in a standards development working group. So that would basically be, you don't even have to be an IEEE member to work in a standards development project. You could attend the meetings, you could get drafts of the standards as they're being worked on. You can vote, you can go all the way to the very end of voting on the draft to pass it on to IEEE, pass it back to the T&D committee where it would be approved and ultimately voted on. If you want to vote on the standard when it actually gets to the next step, which is inside the IEEE SA balloting process, you have to be a member of the IEEE Standards Association, which usually is done by joining IEEE first and then adding IEEE Standards Association on top of it. But if all you want to do was participate and not vote, you don't even have to be a member. Now, to participate in a working group that is not focused on standards development, so for example, a working group that is focused on developing a working group paper or a working group that's focused on a technical report, the IEEE PES has does have a policy that you need to be a PES member, so a member of the Power and Energy Society. You don't actually have to be an IEEE member, you could just be a PES member. So it's actually for a working group, a technical report, be a PES member to work on a standards development project, be an IEEE SA member if you want to vote, or to become a chair. If you wanted to become a chair of any of the committees, you have to be either a member of IEEE or IEEE Standards Association or IEEE PES based on which policy applies to that given activity.
There's Emilia and then Roxana.
So let's see. Next down was so Emilia. Okay, no, actually I'm skipping over. So sometimes, okay, Emilia says I would like to attend one of these conferences, but sometimes it's a little difficult for the price of taking a trip to the general meeting. I would like to bring and inform the schools of this information and these committees. Thank you very much. Thank you. Roxana, okay, you've got a question. Do the committee members receive some additional benefit for time investment, e.g. Payment? I think the question is there a reduction in or discount in You actually, if you participate, if you join IEEE PES, this is probably sometimes not always known, but if you were a PES member, what is it? The Resource Center. So if you're a member of PES, any content that you find here on the Resource Center is free to download with no charge. And so here's a new report that was published on coordinated planning of electric vehicle charging infrastructure. If I were the public, it's going to cost me $15 for this presentation. But for a PES member, which is this one right here, it's free. And so this is one of the, this one is the one that's, you definitely get discounts for, is by becoming a member of IEEE PES itself. Anything that's published on here, which includes a lot of conference materials, a lot of papers, presentations, slide decks, and reports, those are all free.
We are not seeing your screen.
I'm sorry. Yeah, share. So if I go back to here, share. There's the. This is the. Here's the resource center right here. And so at our resourcecenter.IEEE-PES.org, being a member of the IEEE PES will give you download access to anything that you find in here at no cost. So here's I don't know about the tutorials, but definitely the reports. Where's the technical reports? So there's a new report, testing and application of crushed aggregate. That's not always one related to T&D. Maybe this one, forced oscillations and power systems. Technical report 110. To a non-member, $70, but to a PES member, it's free. Institutional members is free as well. The other, I guess, implied discount that you could consider is would come when you're doing standards development activities. You're getting drafts of these standards as they're progressing. When you finish a standards development project, if you are one of the working group members that developed it, you will get a free copy of the finished standard as well. So you do get that. But when you register for a conference, a PES member will be getting a reduced version of the registration cost. Oh, and then Julio has a comment. Thank you, Julio, for joining us. So additionally, starting in January 24, all transaction. Did you want to say that, Julio?
Tanya, I don't know if we can unmute Julio.
Yeah, it's this was new news that I heard last month. So starting in January 24, all transactions and conference proceedings, included in the PES Digital Library of IEEE Explorer, will be available to all PES members. So that's a huge benefit, that when you log into IEEE Explorer, being a member of PES will give you access, I think, to many of the conference proceedings and many of the transactions that are. So IEEE transactions and power delivery, which I mentioned during my presentation. That's one of the transactions that the T&D committee helps organize. Those would be free for those members. And then I see Emilio Vargas. What is the impact of being a participant in one of these committees? Is that my impact, my personal impact of being a member of the committee? Oh. Okay. I've seen a lot of impact. I like to think that I've had some positive impact on the industry in helping, for example, in working in the IEEE SA open source program. There were a lot of problems getting started. There were a lot of questions, a lot of doubts, a lot of things that needed to be solved. And so by me leading a team inside the IEEE PQDIF working group, being able to solve all the issues and ultimately get the open source code, which we've been maintaining inside the working group, actually seeing that make its way to the IEEE SA open source platform, that was big for us because it made that source code suddenly usable and accessible by dozens of meter manufacturers, universities, other companies that want to read and write PQDIF files. And what I've heard in the last 2 years that we've done this, that it's made the PQDIF standard, which is actually a very hard standard to actually implement. If you needed to do it yourself, you've got a lot of work. We've taken out years of development time for any one individual to actually be able to do that. And that's got a big impact on the power quality domain. So I'd like to think that I've had some impact, and I've both outwardly to the industry, and I've let the industry impact me myself. In that it's been a big part of influencing my view on how reports and standards are developed in an international environment.
Okay, thank you, Dan. I don't know if anyone else. Someone else, sorry. Thank you, Emilio. Danny, I don't know if we could let's speak about Santiago and Julio. I will appreciate it. Okay, Santiago.
Okay, thank you, Dan, for your excellent conference webinar. For all the attendees of the conference, thank you in all America, not only Latin America. Thank you, Dulce, for your participation. And we have new and good news for the next weeks in these satellite committees in Latin America. Perhaps in the next weeks, conform a new team in Latin America for a new works in the next month. No, thank you, Dan.
Thank you. Muchas gracias.
Gracias.
Okay, Julio, now you're free to speak.
Oh, thank you. Well, thank you everyone for attending the meeting today, especially to Dan for an excellent presentation. You know, every time I attend your presentations, Dan, I learn something new. So yeah, I appreciate that. And to Dulce also, especially because she has been behind this this initiative. She has been leading and doing a lot of work along with Dan and Santiago and Gary, of course. So what I want to say is that this is a great opportunity for Region 9. I think that what you need to do now is to focus on reports, on papers, on preparing technical documents. Of course, there are so many things that can be done, but I think that I would start probably with and we have discussed this with Dulce, some technical activities around topics of interest for the region. And I think that technical reports, preparing technical reports and papers and presentations, organizing panel sessions and things like that, those are very achievable. I think that there is a lot of talent in the region, and there are several topics that are common to all of the different sections, the different chapters. So anything we can do to support you and to provide guidance, you know where to find us. So feel free to reach out and we'll be happy to support you.
Thank you, Julio. Well, I don't know if someone else, because we're running out of time and it's late for Dan also. But yes, I think that the important idea here is that you understand what this committee does, the main areas, and to do what Julio proposed. Now we are looking for members that would like to make activities, propose a technical report or something that we can share and see if we can propose them in the conference that the region has. So we have a place to show that. So we will appreciate all your support in this. So I don't know if anything else. I don't know, Tana, we could make a picture of this session. We will appreciate it so that Dan could show us and report it to the outside committee this Thursday.
You said you wanted a picture, or?
If we can all gather and take a picture of us.
You turn on the video for everyone?
Yeah, exactly. But I don't know if that's possible. Tanya. One moment. So I also would like to thank Tanya here from the region. She's the leader of the Information Management Committee in the region. She kindly support us with this WebEx. So we really appreciate your support, Tanya. Don't see. One moment. I'm not very used to this platform. I don't receive an answer, but I don't know, Danny, if it's important for you to know that we have attendees from Brazil, Colombia, Mexico, Peru, Costa Rica. Oh no, where other are you? El Salvador, and basically the country that I saw them join to us today. This session will be recorded, and then it will be posted in the YouTube channel from the region, and then we are going to distribute to all our members so they can review all this information. So if anything happens, then I let you know in the LTech meeting.
And I can share the PowerPoint slide deck in just a few moments.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Trinidad and Tobago also. Yeah, well, I guess it won't be possible to.
Yeah, I only see three boxes on my screen. I see you, me, and IEEE Region 9, which I think is the host. So.
Yeah, the host. Yes, you only see the panelist.
The panelist, okay.
That one.
View panels.
You can see only panel. Yeah. Okay, so I guess we cannot. Well, now you know who the attendees were from these countries. We only have the names. So I guess, well, Santiago, do you want to say something more? If not, we can close this meeting. We really appreciate all your support. Okay. I don't know if we could all make panelists.
Oh yeah. Yeah, make everybody.
Dania, is that possible?
I don't know. If you make everyone a panelist, then maybe that does it. You're right.
I don't know how that's works.
If you switch to attendees, I think you can like turn people on.
Okay, now she was able. Now I see now. Yeah.
Okay.
Woohoo! Now turn on your videos. That will be awesome. So Dan could make the report instead of me. Any left, but here we are. Okay, here's Santiago. Amanda is the regional student. Something about the students in the region. She's the representative. And Caitlin is the woman in power in the region. And I don't know who's also there. Emilio. They are a student, Emilio? De Mexico, ¿no? IPN?
No, Mexico Center.
Ah, Mexico Center. No, eres del IPN. Sí, ¿no? Sí. Emilio el Politécnico. Okay, Julian Tagore. So here the ones we left. Okay, I'm going to take the picture. Smile, everyone. 1, 2, 3. Cool. Okay, now we have a picture. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay. Good. So this is all. Thank you all.
Thank you, Dan. Thank you so much. Thank you, Dulce.